Hey guys, tonight we're bundling up for a holiday tale so weird, so cold, and so bureaucratically baffling. It could only have come from the frostbitten corridors of Soviet Russia. Imagine you're just drifting off to sleep in your cozy bed when suddenly Joseph Stalin stomps through your living room, shoves your Christmas tree out the window, and calmly informs you that Christmas has been rescheduled. Not cancelled, just moved a week over, repackaged, and dunked into a vat of state-approved potato salad. This isn't the Christmas you know. This is the Christmas that's been re-educated. Before we dive into the world of Soviet holiday swaps, go ahead and like the video and subscribe. But only if you actually enjoy this sort of thing. If the very idea of a New Year's tree makes you giggle, or you've ever tried to explain to your kids why Santa is now called Grandfather Frost and rides a train instead of a sleigh, you're in the right place. Drop a comment telling me where you're listening from, and whether you've ever had your holiday plans upended by a dictator with a mustache. Now, dim the lights, switch on a fan for that gentle KGB white noise ambiance, and get comfortable. Tuck yourself in like a smuggled box of tangerines on the Soviet black market. But let's pause for a second. Have you ever wondered what it's like to wake up on December 25th, only to realize it's now just Tuesday? What do you do when caroling is illegal? Your tree is considered subversive, and the only stockings being hung are filled with pamphlets about 5-year plans. Did Stalin really steal Christmas, or did he just redistribute it to a more convenient date? Why are you suddenly celebrating New Year's with more fireworks, more potatoes, and a lot less Jesus? Could you survive a Soviet holiday season with no gifts, mandatory snow shoveling, and state-approved Santa? Would you last a single night in a Moscow apartment block? Or would you be denounced for singing Jingle Bells off-key? What's it like to be a parent trying to explain to your children why the nativity scene has been replaced with a scale model of a tractor factory? Well, congratulations. You've just woken up in the USSR, sometime between the late 1920s and 1950s, the golden age of no Christmas for you. The snow is falling, the radio is playing cheerful propaganda, and your holiday spirit is now subject to official review. Good luck. Tonight should be Christmas Eve. But in your Stalinist apartment, it's just another chilly night. The only thing stirring is your neighbor Ivan, clomping through the hallway in his state-issued boots, wondering if the spirit of the season has been sent to Siberia for questionable morals. You clutch your blanket and ponder whether Santa has been rebranded or simply retired. You'd think December 24th would feel magical, but in 1940s Moscow, magic has to file a form in triplicate. The calendar says, work day. The walls say, don't get your hopes up. Your radiator emits exactly as much heat as a warm thought. And you're grateful, because at least it's not as cold as outside, where the wind could qualify as an NKVD interrogation tactic. Outside, the snow falls in clumpy, resentful heaps, sticking to the window ledge like it's on strike. Through the frosted glass, you can see the neighbor's laundry frozen mid-flap, a row of long johns as stiff as the party line. In the apartment across the way, someone's shadow moves furtively, drawing the curtains with the slow, guilty caution of a person hiding a contraband Christmas cookie. The air inside your apartment smells faintly of boiled potatoes and uncertainty. Your mother is in the kitchen, peeling an onion with all the solemnity of a secret ritual. In the corner, the family's houseplant has been promoted to official centerpiece. It's decorated with a single red ribbon for the revolution. And, if you squint, one glittery button scavenged from last year's winter coat. You try not to think about the missing Christmas tree. Officially, there are no Christmas trees. Unofficially, one might be lurking in a broom closet, awaiting the annual solstice amnesty. You settle under your blanket, layers upon layers of scratchy wool and silent resignation, and try to recall the feeling of anticipation. Wasn't Christmas Eve supposed to be about wonder? Here, The only wonder is if you'll have hot water tomorrow morning. Down the hall, Ivan's boots stop in front of your door. He knocks once, the universal Soviet signal for "I'm bored." But let's pretend it's an emergency. You open the door to find him holding a chipped mug of tea and a look of tragic camaraderie. "Did you hear?" he whispers, eyes darting both ways down the hall. "In Leningrad, someone tried to organize a choir." He lowers his voice further. "A choir? On Christmas Eve? Madness." You shake your head, pretending to disapprove, but deep down, you envy the reckless optimism. Ivan sits on the edge of your creaky sofa, and you share a silent toast to forbidden holidays. His mug of tea clinking against your jar of homemade cranberry compote. The conversation drifts, as all holiday conversations do, to memories of a past that may or may not have existed. Ivan recalls a Christmas from childhood. Real oranges, candlelight, and songs sung in a language nobody uses anymore. Your own memory is fuzzier, half-recalled fairy tales, the faint smell of pine, a babushka's quiet hum. Midnight draws near, but the only visitors expected are dreams, and perhaps, if you're unlucky, a sudden inspection by the building's festivity monitor. You wonder what would happen if you tried to hang a stocking by the radiator, or if you left a plate of cookies for Comrade Santa. Would you be rewarded with presents, or just a polite note about the dangers of bourgeois sentimentality? Somewhere outside, a distant dog barks. Somewhere closer, the pipes groan in protest. You pull the blanket tighter and listen to the subtle symphony of Soviet winter. The rattle of pipes, the scrape of boots, the sigh of neighbors remembering a holiday they're not supposed to miss. In the end, you close your eyes and imagine, just for a moment, that tomorrow will bring something more than another Tuesday. That maybe, if you dream quietly enough, Christmas might sneak in through the cracks, undetected, to leave a little hope beneath your pillow. And in that secret space between state and spirit, between what's allowed and what endures, you drift off to sleep, still wondering if Santa has simply learned to wear a disguise. You're expecting a jolly old elf, but instead you get Dead Moroz, Grandfather Frost. He's tall, a bit severe, and he carries a staff like he's ready to audit your holiday spirit. His sidekick, the Snow Maiden, looks suspiciously like she's memorized your file. The presents are modest, but at least he hasn't reported you, yet. It's not that you're against change exactly. It's just that nobody told you Christmas would be recast as a kind of seasonal performance review. You wake up to find Dead Moroz posters plastered on the school walls, his white beard as rigid as official doctrine. He doesn't shimmy down chimneys. He arrives by train, looking fresh from a 5-year plan meeting, probably carrying a spreadsheet instead of a list. The first time you meet him is at the local Palace of Culture. You're herded into an auditorium with 50 other children, all of you wearing your best navy blue uniforms and identical hopeful faces. Dead Moroz makes his entrance, more imposing than magical. His fur coat is regulation, issue and lined with practicality. His beard is impressive, but you suspect it might double as insulation for Siberian pipelines. He surveys the room, scanning for signs of illicit cheer. You try to look festive, but not suspiciously festive. Next to you, your classmate Sasha whispers, "Don't smile too much. He might think you're hiding something." You nod solemnly, adjusting your party hat to the most neutral angle possible. The Snow Maiden, Snegorochka, stands nearby, clipboard in hand. You're not sure if she's taking notes for the Komsomol or just tracking who gets the most candy. Dead Moroz starts the proceedings with a speech about the wonders of Soviet winter and the importance of communal effort. There is no mention of elves, no talk of reindeer, and certainly nothing about the North Pole, unless it's in reference to Arctic resource extraction. Instead, he tells you that the best present you can give is a strong work ethic and respect for collective property. You clap politely, careful not to outshine your neighbors. When it comes time for gifts, you line up like tiny workers waiting for their annual potato ration. Ded Moroz hands out presents, each one identical. A small book, maybe a tangerine, sometimes a red plastic toy that looks suspiciously like a miniature tractor. You can't help but notice the absence of wrapping paper. Instead, gifts are handed out in sturdy, reusable brown paper bags. It's practical, sure, but it doesn't exactly say magic. You remind yourself that magic, like foreign currency, is strictly regulated. Later, as you leave the party, you notice the difference in holiday language. There's no Merry Christmas, just Happy New Year, shouted in official tones from every loudspeaker. You pass a poster in the foyer, Ded Moroz, smiling like a man who's just discovered a minor accounting error in his favor. The Snow Maiden stands beside him, eternally cheerful, but her eyes say, "I know who ate the last of the mayonnaise." Back home, you try to explain Ded Moroz to your grandparents. They nod patiently, pretending to understand, but you can see a flicker of nostalgia when you mention Santa. Your grandfather reminisces about a time when gifts were oranges and sweets, not pamphlets and healthy work habits. "In my day," he whispers, "the only thing scarier than Father Frost was running out of coal." You don't ask if he ever met Santa. You know better than to talk about such things in public. As you tuck away your modest gift, you realize there's an art to celebrating under watchful eyes. You learn to find delight in the small things. The crisp snap of a tangerine peel, the way Ded Moroz's beard gets caught in his collar, the sly wink from the Snow Maiden when she slips you an extra caramel. It's not the holiday you expected, but it's a holiday all the same. A strange, bureaucratic blend of tradition and survival, laughter and caution, where even the magic comes with a receipt. Tonight, you fall asleep clutching your new book, dreaming not of reindeer, but of a world where Grandfather Frost might one day let slip a real, unapproved chuckle. Until then, you'll celebrate as best you can, quietly, carefully, with hope hidden under the mattress. Just in case Ded Moroz comes by for a surprise inspection, your Christmas tree is missing. Instead, there's a New Year's tree, complete with government-approved decorations, red stars, miniature tractors, and a healthy absence of angels. You pretend the ornaments are festive, but the only twinkle is the glint of suspicion in your neighbor's eye. If you were hoping for a fragrant fir glittering with tinsel and memories, adjust your expectations to the festive requirements of the Central Committee. The tree sits proudly, or at least stubbornly, by the window, a spruce that's seen better winters. Its branches droop beneath the weight of decorations that could double as propaganda posters. Little paper Lenin faces, glossy red hammers, and one impressive model of a hydroelectric dam. The only thing green about this tree is its questionable paint job. Setting up the New Year's tree is a careful process. You remember the old stories, how your grandmother used to sneak a tiny glass angel onto the boughs, always near the back, so the neighbors wouldn't see. Now, angels are out, but you have a lovely collection of paper snowflakes meticulously folded by your cousin Pavel in art class. They're not religious, just geometrically enthusiastic. You try to get into the spirit. You string garlands made of red and yellow construction paper, looping them from branch to drooping branch. The lights, of course, are unreliable. Half the bulbs are burned out, and one strand blinks with the erratic energy of a nervous bureaucrat at a public review. Still, you tell yourself, this is festive. Festive in the way boiled potatoes are delicious if you don't remember what real food tastes like. Across the hall, your neighbor Tatiana eyes your window with the suspicion of someone who's seen too many anti-Soviet activities reports. She offers unsolicited advice. The star should be higher. The party is always above. You nod. Adjust the cardboard red star atop the tree, and try not to look guilty about the faded silver bell you tucked behind the trunk. The government is very clear. The New Year's tree is about progress, unity, and cheerful collective optimism. No nativity scenes, no wise men, and definitely no baby in a manger, unless that baby is holding a 5-year plan. So you get creative. You arrange your father's old chess pieces under the branches in the shape of a heroic workers' brigade. You place a copy of the party newspaper at the base, rolled up to look vaguely gift-like. Children adapt quickly. Your little brother hangs toy tractors with pride, giving each a story. This one broke the snowdrift blockade. This one delivered milk to Leningrad. You smile, remembering when ornaments were glass baubles and gingerbread, not tractor models and tiny booklets of Marxist-Leninist wisdom. There's a certain art to hiding the past in plain sight. Families share secret winks when someone hangs a particularly old ornament, a battered relic from a time when trees celebrated Christmas instead of economic productivity. After dinner, you gather around the tree, singing "Happy New Year, comrade," with just enough enthusiasm to satisfy the neighbor listening through the wall. Every now and then, you catch yourself missing the old magic. The piney smell, the sparkle of forbidden tinsel, the quiet thrill of traditions passed down in whispers. Instead, the air is heavy with boiled cabbage, and the only jingle comes from the radiator pipes clanging in protest. And yet, somehow, the tree still works its magic. For one night, the room is full of color, laughter, and the kind of joy that's hard to quantify, even by central planning. The children's faces glow in the half-lit reflection, and you allow yourself to hope that, beneath the red stars and cardboard tractors, a little bit of wonder has survived. In the end, you realize that no matter what you call it, Christmas tree, New Year's tree, or pine-based tool of bourgeois subversion, the tree still gathers family, lights up a dark room, and holds the secret dreams of another winter survived. You just have to look past the propaganda to see it. It's the holidays, but singing carols could land you on a list. You swap out Silent Night for the state anthem and try to look sufficiently enthusiastic about potato salad. Every knock at the door is either a friend dropping by or someone checking your festivity compliance. You never realized how hard it is to look festive and anxious at the same time until the first December you spent under Stalin's watchful gaze. Each year you polish your skills, smiling for the benefit of nosy neighbors, laughing with enough volume to sound joyful but not so much that it's suspicious. You develop a sixth sense for trouble, learning to tell the difference between a friendly knock and the telltale triple rap of a local party official. Tonight, you sit at your kitchen table, hands folded as if in prayer. Although you're praying only to the spirit of plausible deniability, the family has gathered for a seasonally appropriate meal, which means potatoes boiled, potatoes baked, and a special side of potatoes mashed. On the table sits a bowl of vinaigrette, dyed beet red, and meant to evoke the passion of the revolution, although it mostly evokes heartburn. You reach for your glass of holiday punch, which is really just weak tea, but you toast to the new year with gusto. No mention of Christmas, of course. The word is banished, like the uncle no one talks about since he got a job in railway management. Instead, you all raise your glasses to progress, productivity, and shared values, while quietly wishing for something more exciting than surplus cabbage. If you absolutely must sing, you opt for state-approved tunes. The radio is on, and you join in a stirring chorus of "Forward, Comrades." It's less melodic than "Deck the Halls," but at least the lyrics are on the poster taped to your wall. In the next apartment, you can hear someone tentatively humming the tune to Jingle Bells, only to pivot mid-verse into a rousing chant about wheat production. It's festive, in a way that makes you nostalgic for boredom. Gift-giving is a delicate operation. You exchange presents in plain brown wrappers, homemade mittens, a slightly lopsided candle, a hard-won bar of soap, nothing extravagant. Excessive generosity might suggest you've been hoarding, or worse, making black market deals with the babushka at the market who definitely does not have chocolate stashed under her shawl. You keep the gifting process brief, just in case someone on the stairwell hears the unwrapping and decides to take notes. Of course, there are the true rebels, those who host secret gatherings, drawing blackout curtains and whispering old carols when the wind is loud enough to cover the sound. You've heard tales of underground Christmas parties, where brave souls risk everything to share a forbidden cake or read a passage from a hidden Bible. You're not so bold, but you do slip a sugared plum to your niece with a conspiratorial wink. For a child, even the smallest sweetness tastes like a revolution. Every so often, a real friend shows up, armed with nothing but their wits and perhaps a half-empty bottle of questionable vodka. Together, you play harmless games, like Guess the Potato Variety, and reminisce about holidays past, never too loudly, always with one ear cocked for the sound of boots in the hallway. It's a strange way to celebrate, always watching the door, always keeping a list of safe topics and unapproved merriment. But there's a stubborn kind of joy in outwitting the rules. You learn to find meaning in a shared look, a carefully coded joke, a memory whispered over a plate of beets. You invent new traditions, some designed to slip past censors, others just to remind yourselves that you are still, somehow, human. And when the party winds down, you pack away your brown-wrapped gifts, brush the crumbs from the table, and sit quietly in the half-dark, listening to the city hum. Maybe next year, you think, things will be different, but for now, you celebrate survival itself, cautiously, cleverly, with your spirit intact, and a secret, silent hope singing somewhere inside you, off the official record. Your holiday meal has been meticulously planned, not by you, but by a committee. The menu: potatoes, beet salad, and optimism. You dream of roast goose, but tonight you're grateful for boiled cabbage and the vague promise of collective happiness. Of course, you know what you're supposed to say when you sit down for the holiday supper. The correct answer is, "What a beautiful spread." Never have the achievements of Soviet agriculture been so delicious. The reality is, you're staring at a parade of root vegetables so monochrome, you wonder if color itself is bourgeois. At the head of the table, grandmother lifts her spoon with reverence. "Remember," she whispers, "when there was meat?" You nod solemnly, careful not to look nostalgic. It's best not to appear too attached to pre-revolutionary protein. Everything about the meal is an exercise in creative austerity. The salad is more theory than substance. Cubes of beet, a single, ceremonious pea, and onions chopped so finely they're basically an aroma. The potatoes have been boiled, mashed, and, in a moment of boldness, lightly salted. Salt, after all, is a luxury reserved for the most special of state occasions. On the platter sits a modest slab of brown bread, so dense it could be used for self-defense. Butter is a rumor, spoken of in hushed tones, possibly invented by counter-revolutionaries. Still, the table is set as best as possible. Someone has folded a napkin into the shape of a red star. The glasses, matching only in their shared history of being chipped, are filled with compote, a sort of fruit punch made from apples that lost their will to live over the summer. If you close your eyes and sip quickly, you can almost taste hope. The conversation is light, or at least lightweight enough to avoid official scrutiny. You toast the future, the party, and the exceptional virtues of boiled cabbage. Someone recites a poem about Lenin and snowflakes. You all clap with the enthusiasm of people who understand applause is safer than silence. In the background, the radio hums, static, marching songs, and the cheerful crackle of state-sanctioned cheer. You remember, with a pang, the tales your grandparents used to tell. Mountains of roasted meats, platters of pastries, oranges bright as the rising sun. Those stories feel more like fairy tales now. This is your feast, one night when all the little indulgences, an extra scoop of sour cream, an actual carrot in the soup, are rolled out with the drama of a state funeral. Everyone lingers over every bite, not out of fullness, but to make the moment last. After all, potatoes are eternal, but joy is rationed. At some point, Uncle Yuri proposes a toast to the 5-year plan, which gave us at least 3 potatoes this year. There's a moment of silence as everyone contemplates whether this is technically subversive. Then, laughter, genuine but careful. Jokes about shortages are funny, as long as no one repeats them in line at the bakery tomorrow. As the meal draws to a close, the table is littered with empty dishes and full bellies. Full by the standards of the season, anyway. Someone breaks out a deck of cards, and you play for matchsticks and pride. The younger children put on a short play about tractor production. Every holiday needs its heroic worker. You clap as your cousin delivers a stirring monologue about the importance of beets. In the glow of a single light bulb, you realize that the real feast isn't the food. It's the act of gathering, the ritual of scraping together what you can, and the quiet rebellion of hoping for more. Tomorrow, it's back to rations, grey bread, and 5-year plans. But for tonight, you savor your one-night feast, potatoes and all, with the warmth of family and the fleeting taste of celebration. In its own bleakly comic way, it's perfect. Stockings? You mean those thick woolen socks that double as mittens and third-rate gift bags? The only thing filling them tonight is a government pamphlet, and if you're lucky, a single orange. Merry Marxmas. In the old stories, stockings hung above crackling fireplaces, bulging with tiny treasures and the kind of mysterious candy you only see once a year. Here in your Soviet apartment, stockings, if you can call them that, are better described as survival gear. You hang them not over a fire, fireplaces being a pre-revolutionary hazard, but over the rattling, half-warm radiator that hisses with proletarian disappointment. This year, you have upgraded from the family's oldest pair of socks, the ones with the toes worn through and the faint aroma of shoe polish, to your holiday socks, slightly less threadbare, only moderately itchy, and dyed a shade of brown that would be considered festive if you were a potato. You pin them optimistically to the radiator, watching them sag with the weight of low expectations. The night before New Year's, you perform the ritual, straighten the socks, adjust the angle for maximum visibility. Not that anyone in your household could possibly miss them in your one-room apartment, and offer a silent wish to the gods of citrus and collective farming. Your little brother, eyes wide with hope, asks if Grandfather Frost will fill his sock with chocolate. You pause, then reply with the gentle realism of a person who's seen the confectionery section at Gum, maybe if he can find any. Gifts are a lesson in improvisation. You can't buy much, not without a special coupon, a friend in high places, or a willingness to stand in line until April. So you get creative. Last year, you received a single pencil, sharpened, luxury, a ball of string, and a postcard featuring an oil refinery in winter. This year, you hope for something edible, anything not pickled. Your mother stuffs the socks with practical items. A ration card for extra bread, a tiny bar of soap, and the aforementioned government pamphlet explaining the 5 virtues of collective joy. If you're truly lucky, miraculously lucky, there's an orange. Not just any orange, but a tangerine. Small, misshapen, with a rind that peels away in perfect little spirals. The citrus aroma is so exotic, so bright and hopeful, it almost feels illegal. For a moment, you consider hiding it, but you split it among the family, each wedge savored like it might contain forbidden vitamins. There are stories, whispered between neighbors in the stairwell, of children who woke to find chocolate coins, toy cars, or foreign chewing gum in their stockings. These are urban legends, the fairy tales of the communal apartment block. More often, the only coins you find are kopecks, cold and unspendable, and the only toy cars are matchboxes repurposed from last year's packaging. As midnight approaches, you gather around the radiator to open your stockings. There is no mystery. Everyone knows exactly what went in and who put it there. But there is still ceremony. Your father reads aloud from the pamphlet, affecting the enthusiasm of a man who has never once doubted the value of collective celebration. Your mother doles out the treats with the precision of a party official conducting an inventory. You laugh, you sigh, you nibble the crumb of chocolate or peel your segment of orange, and you tell yourself, this is enough. The real gift, you remind yourself, is the fact that everyone made it through another year with feet more or less warm and spirits only slightly frayed. As you tuck your sock under your pillow for safekeeping, you imagine a future where stockings might again bulge with possibility, if not for you, then for the next stubborn generation. Until then, you wish each other Merry Marxmas, close your eyes, and let the warmth of hope, however faint, carry you into the next year. Gone are the shepherds and wise men. In their place, a meticulously crafted model of the Magnitogorsk steel plant. Your family gathers around the manga of industry, while someone recites the production quotas for 1940. The holidays used to mean angels, animals, and a baby in the hay. Now, the only hay in sight is part of the model railway transporting coal, painted lentils. From the communal barn to the factory floor, the traditional nativity figures have been replaced, one by one. Over the years, Mary and Joseph politely retired to a shoebox in the wardrobe, their spots on the windowsill filled by sturdy workers molded from clay and optimism. The three wise men have become three diligent engineers, each holding a schematic. Their gifts are symbolic: a wrench, a shovel, and the annual report from the Ministry of Heavy Industry. You arrange the scene carefully, with the precision of someone aware that neighbors might peek in at any moment. At the heart of the tableau, where a star would normally shine, you've placed a little red light bulb, the lamp of progress. It flickers slightly, either from electrical uncertainty or because the wires are held together with last year's tinsel. Either way, it casts a warm, industrial glow on the tiny model of the infant tractor, swaddled in blueprints and ready to be deployed for the spring sowing. Family gathers around, trying to muster the proper mixture of reverence and enthusiasm. Uncle Yuri, always eager for a performance, clears his throat and solemnly reads from the little red book of production. In the year 1940, the Magnitogorsk plant exceeded quotas by 3.6%. You nod respectfully. Grandma knits beside the radiator, casting a sidelong glance at the figurine she secretly believes is St. Nicholas in disguise. Although he's currently holding a coal bucket and wearing a felt cap emblazoned with a hammer and sickle, children accept this scene with the flexibility of the young. Your niece reenacts the story with a herd of plastic farm animals and a lead figurine of Comrade Stalin, who has, for tonight only, been promoted to chief overseer of the North Star. The older kids snicker as they arrange the animals into rows, explaining that the ox and the ass have been reassigned to logistics, and the sheep have a new union contract. Instead of carols, you hum a stirring ode to industrial achievement. The melody is familiar, almost suspiciously close to a band hymn, but you change the words at the last moment, just in case someone in the stairwell has keen ears and a dull sense of humor. In the corner, your brother strings together garlands of gears cut from scrap cardboard, winding them around the model smokestacks. There's an art to making this scene both festive and regulation compliant. The centerpiece of your holiday table is a gingerbread factory, decorated with icing conveyor belts and licorice smokestacks. If anyone asks, It's a tribute to the 5-year plan, not a nostalgic nod to forbidden traditions. Dinner is served in shifts, assembly line style. Each plate is filled according to the pre-approved holiday rations. Someone makes a joke about standing in line for seconds, and everyone laughs a bit too loudly. You can't help but miss the old nativity, the soft candlelight, the quiet hope. But tonight, in the hum of conversation and the warm glow of the red lamp, you feel a flicker of something sacred, hope sneaking in, disguised as progress. Before bed, you slip one small figurine, a hand-carved shepherd, into your pocket. Maybe next year he'll find his way back to the scene. For now, the manga of industry stands proud, steel and gears gleaming in the holiday dusk. And as the radio announces the next quota update, you close your eyes and dream of a world where miracles come in any shape, even as a surplus of pig iron. The snow is deep, the nights are long, and the only sleigh bells you hear are the clanking trams. Children make snowmen, but they're carefully sculpted into heroic workers. You start to wonder if the snow is actually a government-issued resource. By late December, the snow piles up against your apartment block in silent monochrome waves, blanketing every surface with the cold certainty of a state directive. The kind of snow that would, in a different world, be the backdrop for cozy family stories, jingling sled rides, and perhaps a spontaneous snowball fight that ended in giggles and hot chocolate. Here, it's more of an uninvited house guest, silent, persistent, and impossible to evict until March. The mornings start dark and stay dark for most of the day. Sunlight feels like a rumor, the sort of thing you might see in an imported Western film. Sunlight, fireplaces, and other dangerous luxuries. You pull on your felt boots, wrap a scarf around your face, and step outside, bracing yourself for the Siberian slap that is the Soviet wind. The air tastes metallic and oddly clean, except for the subtle undertones of diesel and boiled cabbage. Snow removal is a neighborhood event. It's not just a chore, it's a moral obligation. You and your neighbors gather with shovels and a faint hope of collective reward. There are no snowplows, just human pluck, and the prospect of earning a gold star for community participation. The supervisor, armed with a clipboard and a hat several sizes too big, surveys the snowbanks with grim determination. Every chunk you toss onto the communal pile is one less reason to be reported for unneighborly behavior. You work together, warming your hands with the friction of shared complaint, telling each other that this is the year they'll finally give us proper gloves. For children, snow is both a playground and a political education. The neighborhood snowman building contest is announced via loudspeaker. All snow sculptures must depict scenes of productive labor, patriotic heroes, or agricultural progress. Your little brother's snowman, arms posed in a tractor-driving stance, wins a special mention for exemplary proletarian posture. The prize? A ration coupon for extra turnips. In a bold move, your neighbor's daughter sculpts a snowwoman carrying a hammer, and the block committee spends an hour debating whether she represents heroic motherhood or insufficient ideological clarity. In a moment of private rebellion, you pack a snowball, aiming for the lamplight. But as you throw, you remember last winter's cautionary tale, the boy who beaned the party secretary's hat and spent 2 weeks scraping ice off communal steps as re-education. You settle for launching your snowball at the side of the building, where it explodes harmlessly, its only witness a stray cat and the ever-present stare of the apartment super. Nights are the hardest. The cold seeps into everything, boots, blankets, bones. The windows frost over, sketching strange crystalline patterns that look suspiciously like propaganda posters if you squint. You huddle under your woolen layers, listening to the wind rattle the glass, and try to imagine what it would be like to see snow as a blank canvas instead of a blank report card. Yet, even without magic, the winter has its small wonders. The way your breath hangs in the air like secret words, The brief camaraderie of strangers pressed together on the tram, all headed home to tea and thin soup. And every so often, someone manages to sneak a sled out just after dusk when the supervisors are napping. The laughter echoes across the courtyard, quick, hushed, but undeniably joyful. The snow may be allocated and the joy carefully rationed, but somehow a little bit of mischief survives each winter. And for a moment, as you brush the snow off your boots and step inside, you remember what it's like to be warm, even if it's only for a minute. There's no greater holiday luxury than a single glorious tangerine. You peel it slowly, savoring every bite, knowing it came from a cousin who knows a guy who liberated it from a party official's fruit basket. Forget diamonds or caviar. Real Soviet prestige is measured in citrus. A tangerine is more than fruit. It's a talisman, a sunbeam imported from a warmer, luckier world. When you were little, you thought the skin was dyed orange just for the new year, as if the universe itself had dipped it in hope. Now, older and more suspicious, you know there are at least 4 forms to fill out, and a minimum of 3 secret handshakes before any citrus crosses the threshold of your apartment. Receiving one is an event. You display the tangerine in the middle of the table for days, letting its scent fill the air, a defiant whiff of abundance in a room otherwise dominated by boiled beets and damp wool. Family members walk by and pat it, as if checking the security on crown jewels. Occasionally, you catch your mother rearranging the table so it sits just so in the light, a small orange star at the center of your humble solar system. Tonight, the fruit is finally ripe for ceremony. The whole family gathers around, and you're selected, perhaps for good grades, perhaps for having the longest arms, to perform the sacred peeling. There is a reverent hush as you begin, making a show of loosening the skin with all the slow, suspenseful gravitas of a magician. The initial burst of citrus oil rises up, and for a second, the whole apartment smells like a summer that never happened. Even the wallpaper perks up. Each wedge is precious. The first goes to the oldest person in the room, a babushka whose wrinkles deepen into a smile that could power the city for a week. The next to the youngest, because in a just world, children would know sweet things. By the time it's your turn, you break the slice in half, pretending you're too full already. Nobody believes you, but this is how rituals are born. You chew slowly, letting the juice fill your mouth. For a moment, you're not in Moscow, or Omsk, or Leningrad. You're anywhere the sun is real and winter is just a rumor. The taste is sharp, sweet, and fleeting. You think about the journey this fruit has made. Smuggled in a suitcase, passed in a pocket, stashed under a pile of pamphlets. It survived train rides, border guards, and at least one near escape from a customs inspector who probably sniffed the air but decided to let it go. Perhaps even the party official whose basket was lightened by your cousin will enjoy the story more than the fruit. You'd think a tangerine would be just a snack. But in this apartment, it's a memory in the making. Every segment brings a story. Of the time your uncle found one in 70. 2 and had to bribe a store clerk with a set of nylon stockings. Of the neighbor who ate an entire orange herself and was spoken of in reverent, slightly judgmental tones for years. You laugh, you sigh, you remember winters with no tangerine at all, those years when you made do with potato candy or a single cube of sugar, if you were lucky. When the fruit is gone, you don't throw away the peels. Instead, you dry them on the radiator, turning them over like relics, letting the scent fill the room a little longer. For the next week, every cup of weak tea tastes like nostalgia. The peels will be boiled for cough syrup, tossed into compote, or slipped into the pocket of your coat as a secret, invisible shield against winter. Some people say it's silly to fuss over fruit, but those people have never lived through a new year with only one tangerine for hope. Tonight, you close your eyes with a smile. the aftertaste lingering, a reminder that sometimes the rarest things are sweetest not because they're scarce, but because you shared them. In the dead of night, your family whispers Christmas memories over weak tea. Grandma remembers midnight mass. Mom hums a band carol, and you swear the neighbor across the hall is hiding a nativity set in her broom closet. There's an art to surviving a holiday that technically doesn't exist. Officially, it's just another week of winter. But after the lights go out and the trams fall silent, something unspoken begins to stir in your cramped apartment. The city outside is blanketed in the hush of snow and compliance. Inside, your family draws the curtains and draws closer. You pour tea so diluted it's almost transparent. But the ritual is what matters. There's an old tin of special occasion cookies, just a few broken halves left. More memory than meal. Grandma fingers the rim of her teacup as if reading it for omens. She begins softly, telling a story about a Christmas long ago, before the revolution, before ration books and radio silence. There were bells, she says, real ones, echoing through frosted streets. Church candles. A choir that sang so beautifully you could feel the sound in your bones. You listen, wide-eyed, as she paints a world you've never seen. There was warmth, colour, and a feast with so much food the table sagged. She remembers oranges in stockings, carolers at the door, even a tree that sparkled, not with red stars, but with tiny silver angels. You try to imagine it. Joy unwrapped, not rationed. Mom picks up the thread, humming a tune she's forbidden to sing out loud. The melody floats between you, barely above a whisper, but your heart fills in the words. She smiles, remembering the old neighbors, how they'd sneak up the stairs with secret loaves of bread, trade stories and apples, and wish each other blessings under their breath. The best parties, she confides, were always the quietest. Your little brother stares into his mug as if hoping to find a crumb of the past. He asks, "Do you think anyone still does Christmas for real?" Everyone glances at the door, out of habit. Some do, Grandma says, eyes twinkling, but it's not about the tree or the feast. It's about keeping the light alive when no one's supposed to see it. You've become experts at clandestine cheer. A cinnamon stick smuggled from a friend's kitchen turns plain tea into a Christmas miracle. An old candle, lit for electricity shortages, flickers with memories of midnight vigils. If you listen closely, you can sometimes catch the faint sound of a harmonica from down the hall, and you're sure that's the neighbor playing Silent Night in a major key. There's a community here, built on glances and coded greetings. You nod to Mrs. Ivanova in the stairwell, and she nods back, her eyes saying more than words ever could. At school, you and your friends exchange paper snowflakes folded from homework margins, each one a small act of rebellion. Once, you even caught a glimpse of a star-shaped cookie in your teacher's desk drawer. She didn't explain, and you didn't ask. When everyone else finally drifts off to sleep, you stay up a little longer, watching the snow fall through the fogged glass. The apartment is quiet, but you can almost feel the pulse of hope running through the pipes, the floors, the walls. You know you're not alone. In apartments and villages across the vast, silent country, other families are keeping the same secrets, whispering stories, sharing scraps of joy, passing down hope like a candle shielded from the wind. Being a Christmas survivor isn't about recreating the old holidays. It's about persistence, about remembering and reinventing, about finding wonder in the scraps left behind. And when you finally crawl into bed, you feel the warmth of belonging, even if it's just a story, a song, and the knowledge that, somewhere, Christmas has survived another year. The radio blares messages of unity, strength, and the joys of productive relaxation. You smile for the annual family photo, careful to look neither too merry nor too morose. Somewhere, A bureaucrat checks the holiday spirit quota. It's a special time of year. And by special, you mean your daily routine is now accompanied by a relentless barrage of state-approved enthusiasm. At 7 a.m., you're gently roused not by sleigh bells or the scent of baking bread, but by the chipper voice of the morning announcer. Comrades, let us ring in the season with the radiant glow of communal industry. You blink sleepily, trying to decide if you feel more radiant or more like a potato left out in the cold. Before breakfast, you help arrange the living room for the family portrait. The photographer, your neighbor Victor, whose camera is missing the flash, arrives precisely on time, a stack of paperwork in his arms. Remember, no excessive grinning, he says, wagging a finger. But no frowns either. We want happiness, but not decadence. You practice in the mirror, a pleasant, vaguely hopeful look that could mean, long live the future, or I just ate a very neutral bowl of soup. When the shutter clicks, your family freezes in tableau. Hands folded, backs straight, faces glowing with the exact amount of officially sanctioned cheer. Grandpa's tie is red. Grandma's brooch is a modest 5-pointed star. Your little brother clutches a copy of the holiday message, its cover emblazoned with tractors in the snow. The resulting photo could be mistaken for a party congress. But that's the point. Somewhere, your portrait will join thousands of others, pinned to a corkboard beneath the slogan "Collective joy is the best joy." Outside, speakers crackle from every lamppost. The playlist consists of 2 genres: optimism and more optimism. Every song is about forward progress, glorious winters, and how everyone's favorite tradition is shoveling snow with a smile. On the street, you pass people nodding in time with the music, careful to keep their pace in step with the tempo of productivity. Holiday greetings are everywhere, but they all sound strangely familiar. Wishing you a 5-year plan full of joy, the postman exclaims, handing you a stack of identical New Year's cards. The cards are beautiful, if repetitive, dead morose waving, workers smiling, a dazzling display of red and gold. Some are signed with enthusiasm from your local planning office. Others simply say, "Be cheerful, or else." Of course, behind the paper-thin slogans, real cheer is harder to stamp out. On your way home, you overhear neighbors exchanging secret handshakes. 3 squeezes means happy holidays. In the stairwell, Mrs. Petrovna presses a wrapped cookie into your palm, eyes darting left and right. "Eat it later," she whispers. It's not regulation, but it is delicious. Back in your apartment, you tune the radio to a forbidden frequency, just for a moment. A static-filled voice is singing a melody you almost remember from childhood, and suddenly, the bland potato salad on the table tastes almost sweet. Dad winks and raises his glass. To joy, official and otherwise. The family toasts quietly, careful not to clink the glasses too loudly in case the neighbors are listening. The warmth spreads anyway. When the evening ends, you write your own greeting, carefully coded, to slip under a friend's door. May your quota be light and your soup never watery. It's not poetry, but it's honest. As you drift off to sleep, you realize that behind every official message, there's 1,000 secret wishes and smiles, tiny, unregistered acts of hope that make the season real. The radio may measure your spirit, but only you know just how much it can hold. You exchange presents, but nothing too extravagant. Wouldn't want to look bourgeois. A handmade scarf, a wooden spoon, maybe a rare chocolate bar. Every gift is wrapped with love and a dash of plausible deniability. Gift-giving has become an exercise in both creativity and caution. You know that anything too fancy, too foreign, or too expensive will raise eyebrows, first from your neighbors and eventually from the block committee, who have developed a 6th sense for suspiciously jolly activity. so you make your list carefully. Useful, practical, unimpressive, you mutter, ticking off items with the focus of a professional risk assessor. A pair of woolen mittens knitted in slightly mismatched sizes, a bar of homemade soap, which smells mostly of hope and a little bit of leftover onions. The ritual unfolds on New Year's Eve, with the curtains drawn tight and the radio tuned to the official channel, just in case. You gather in the living room, each person holding a modest parcel wrapped in yesterday's newspaper. The only real luxury is a scrap of ribbon saved from last year, ironed flat between pages of Lenin's collected works. For a moment, there is a pause as everyone checks the window, just to be sure the neighbor across the courtyard isn't watching through her opera glasses. She's been known to report a suspiciously large cake as antisocial baking. The presents are opened slowly, with the gravity of diplomats signing a treaty. Your little brother gets a tin whistle, carefully hand-painted to look like anything but a Western toy. He blows one note before Dad gently takes it away, just in case it's too joyful. Your mother beams as she unwraps a carefully whittled wooden spoon, its handle inscribed with the year in tiny, secretive numbers. Your aunt receives a scarf, each stitch a testament to endless evenings spent squinting by lamplight, the pattern just uneven enough to declare definitely not black market. And then, the miracle. A small, shiny bar of chocolate. Real chocolate. The kind you haven't tasted since last spring, when a friend of a friend managed to procure some from a cousin in Odessa. It's passed around and admired before being broken into pieces, each square shared and savored. It tastes faintly of cocoa and entirely of rebellion. You glance at the pile of unwrapped gifts, no price tags, no fancy packaging, just practical things that somehow feel more valuable than all the gadgets in the West. A ball of twine, a pocket mirror with a crack artfully disguised by a sticker, a hand-sewn pouch for ration cards. Every object carries a backstory, a hidden joke, a memory of how it was smuggled, bartered, or rescued from a drawer of emergency items. All the while, the spectre of surveillance hangs in the air. The apartment walls are thin. The radiators hum with the possibility of hidden microphones. And you know that laughter travels further than you'd like. When Uncle Grisha makes a joke about capitalist Christmas excess, everyone chuckles a little too loudly, in the hope that anyone eavesdropping will write, "Family enjoys permitted humor" in their report. After the gifts are opened, you clean up the evidence. Wrapping paper burned in the stove, ribbons carefully rolled and hidden away, even the string from the chocolate bar tucked into a drawer for next year. Still, despite all the caution, you feel a warm rush of satisfaction, because each gift, no matter how humble, is a small act of trust, a whispered message that you care, that you notice, that you're still willing to risk a little for the people you love. You settle into the evening with the taste of chocolate on your tongue and the comfort of knowing that, for all the scrutiny, some things are too human to regulate. When you finally go to bed, you tuck your new wooden spoon under your pillow, a lucky charm in a world that tries its best to ration joy. The town square fills with pageantry, banners, trumpets, and a suspicious number of marching children. You wave, you cheer, and you try not to wonder where all the Christmas decorations have gone. This is the highlight of the official winter season, a spectacle engineered to lift spirits, showcase youthful enthusiasm, and remind everyone that joy is most effective when properly scheduled and centrally managed. You pull on your stiffest scarf and make your way to the square, boots crunching on packed snow, breath fogging in the Arctic air. Around you, people gather in orderly rows, clutching small flags and programs printed with the week's most inspiring slogans, "Forward together into the frosty future," and a banner in every glove. The banners themselves are enormous, rippling in the wind, red, gold, and white, emblazoned with tractors, wheat sheaves, and the occasional smiling dead Moroz whose beard somehow seems trimmed to party regulations. You scan the crowd for any sign of the old holiday symbols. No tinsel, no angels, no accidental glitter. It's all very clean, very practical, very enthusiastic. You briefly consider if anyone would notice a tiny pine cone slipped into your coat pocket, then decide it's not worth the paperwork. The children march in perfect formation, bundled in identical blue coats, hats perched neatly, cheeks pink with cold and collective pride. They carry paper torches, not lit, fire safety is key, but colored bright orange and yellow to symbolize the burning passion of socialist youth. A teacher stands off to the side, clipboard in hand, nodding approvingly as each group passes by. You spot your little cousin somewhere in the third row, waving with both the joy of performance and the determination not to slip on the icy cobblestones. Behind the children comes the marching band, a hardy group of teenagers and weary adults blasting out triumphant tunes on dented trumpets and slightly frozen clarinets. The melodies are rousing, hymns to victory, productivity, and the promise of a record-breaking beat harvest. You hum along, your breath mixing with the brass, and for a moment you almost feel swept up in it all. The pageant reaches its peak when a local official steps onto the podium, his coat shiny and his mustache perfectly symmetrical. He reads from a stack of papers, voice booming through the loudspeakers. "Comrades, we gather here, united in hope, to march forward into another year of mutual support and controlled festivity." Everyone claps at the right moment, glancing sidelong to see who's lagging behind on their quota of enthusiasm. At some point, you're handed a paper cup of parade punch, a tepid liquid with a citrus scent so faint you wonder if the tangerines were waved over the cauldron but never actually invited inside. Still, you drink it, and it's warm enough to unfreeze your teeth. A volunteer moves through the crowd with a basket of bread slices, each one so thin it's practically see-through. But it's the spirit that counts. Amid the orchestrated joy, you notice a few quiet acts of rebellion. A grandmother pulls her granddaughter's hat down over her ears, then sneaks a small, sugared biscuit from her coat sleeve. Someone starts a snowball, aiming discreetly at a statue of a particularly stern factory director. You catch an old man pinning a tiny homemade star to the inside of his lapel. The band plays on, loud enough to drown out anything unscripted. When the parade finally ends, you join the slow, shuffling exodus home, the banners flapping one last time in the icy breeze. The decorations may be missing, but the day is full of laughter, shivers, and a quiet, shared defiance that survives even the longest winters. As you turn back for one last look at the empty square, you almost believe in the optimism, or at least in the possibility that next year there might be just a little more color. At home, your ears still ringing from the trumpets, you hang your scarf to dry and realize that sometimes icy optimism is better than none at all, especially when it comes with parade punch and a biscuit, contraband or not. Tonight's dessert: beet cake with a side of nostalgia. You pretend it tastes like childhood, but your taste buds know betrayal when they meet it. The family agrees not to speak of the gelatin incident from last year. Cooking for the holidays in the USSR is less about following recipes and more about solving a puzzle with missing pieces and secret rules. In the corner of your kitchen sits the family's prized cookbook, festive Soviet delicacies for the masses. It's well thumbed, stained by generations of hope and potato water, and heavy on suggestions like substitute anything for everything. The section on desserts is optimistic, stretching the definition to include stewed fruit, black bread, and creative uses for leftover cabbage. This year, the ministry's official magazine features a dazzling spread on beet cake, a monument to ingenuity, if not flavor. The instructions are vague. Combine beets, flour, and spirit of collectivism. Sweeten as available. The result is a lopsided cake, with a hue somewhere between communist crimson and optimistic bruise. You slice it with reverence, the knife squeaking through the dense, fibrous sponge, and serve it on the good plates, the ones with only minor chips. Each bite is an experience. The cake tastes faintly of earth and a hint of sugar, if you close your eyes and imagine hard enough. You all eat politely, nodding encouragement. The family's silent pact to avoid comparisons to last year's disaster. The ill-fated gelatin mold that never quite set, slumping across the table like a state-approved jellyfish. Even Grandma, who has lived through 5 regimes and 3 major food shortages, agrees not to mention it, her spoon moving in slow, dignified circles. Around you, the kitchen hums with practical improvisation. The salad is made of 3 ingredients found at the back of the pantry and a secret 4th that no one is brave enough to guess. The bread is fortified with leftover kasha. Your uncle brings out a jar of homemade compote, fruit drink brewed from shriveled apples, raisins, and optimism. "Drink up," he says. "It's good for morale and at least 2 vitamins." You toast with chipped glasses and clink them gently. No one wants to risk losing another. As you eat, someone starts a game of guess the secret ingredient. The children make wild suggestions: carrots, turnips, hope, sawdust. Grandpa says, "If it's pink and sweet, let's just thank the ministry and move on." Laughter bubbles up around the table, and for a moment, the blandness is softened by genuine warmth. There's an art to pretending the meal is better than it is. You talk about flavors you once tasted. Chocolate from a cousin's package, lemon candies in a good year, a real honey cake, once, a decade ago. Every family has a myth about an uncle who found a banana or a neighbor who smuggled home coffee. These stories are retold at the table, part comfort, part defiance. A reminder that food is as much about memory as taste. Still, you do your best with what you have. The beet cake, for all its shortcomings, is cut into careful slices, each piece served with a dollop of sour cream, or what passes for it this winter. After the first tentative bites, you discover that, strangely, it gets better as you go, or maybe your tongue just goes numb. Someone proposes a toast to better recipes next year, and everyone raises their fork. After dinner, the kitchen smells faintly of beets and burnt sugar, but also of victory, because you made it work. You managed a celebration, a feast, and even a dessert, however questionable. The ministry might control the ingredients, but for tonight, you control the laughter. And that, you decide, is the best flavor of all. Instead of deck the halls, you're serenaded by the neighborhood youth choir, performing stirring renditions of Forward to the Future in matching scarves. You hum along, hoping nobody notices your longing for jingle bells. It's caroling, but not as your ancestors knew it. There are no secret midnight visits, no joyful knock at the door followed by a breathless chorus of old melodies. Instead, it's all highly coordinated, with schedules approved by the local Komsomol committee and songbooks distributed at the last block meeting. The children gather outside your building, all lined up in precise ranks, red and blue scarves perfectly tied, and faces frozen into the polite, earnest smiles of kids who know there are extra rations for participation. The choir's conductor is a young woman with a clipboard and the kind of enthusiasm that only grows under supervision. She waves her baton, and the children launch into the march of industrious youth. The melody has the bounce of a parade and the relentless optimism of a 5-year plan. It's less fa-la-la and more ra-ta-ta. Every verse celebrates milestones in tractor production, milk quotas exceeded, and the healthy glow of collective labor. You clap on cue, careful not to seem too disinterested or, worse, too enthusiastic. After all, the wrong kind of excitement can also be suspicious. As they move on to victory through snowfall, you spot your little cousin in the second row, mouthing the words while sneaking glances at the real snowflakes drifting past. She meets your eye for a second, her cheeks as pink as her scarf, and for a moment you both try to remember the words to "Let It Snow." Instead, she dutifully belts out a verse about the great electrification of the motherland. A passing babushka leans in and whispers, "I liked the old songs better." You nod in silent agreement. Behind every window, faces peer out. Some genuinely delighted, some bemused, and a few counting down the minutes until the next song. You recall stories from your grandmother, how once upon a time, caroling meant sneaking out in the cold, breath puffing into the night, singing under frosted windows for sweets or coins, sometimes chased away by a grumpy landlord. Now, sweets are rationed and coins are mostly for show. The only reward here is a polite round of applause. And, if the conductor is feeling generous, a cup of thin compote. You notice the choir's set list posted in the entryway, comrades toast, in praise of the collective farm, bright tomorrows await. Not a single mention of reindeer, sleigh bells, or chestnuts roasting on anything. After the third number, Hymn to the Iron Bridge, your mind wanders. What if you slipped them a copy of Jingle Bells with the lyrics swapped for tractor specifications? Would anyone notice? The show rolls on, voices rising, cheeks flushed. At one point, the choir performs Midnight in Magnitogorsk, a ballad about steel production that nearly brings a tear to the supervisor's eye. You hum along, inventing your own secret lyrics, dashing through the snow on a one collective sleigh. Afterward, you step outside for a breath of crisp air, catching snippets of conversation, mothers praising the children, a neighbor muttering about the good old days, a dad wondering aloud if there will ever be a song about potatoes. Someone hands you a program, and you read the dedication. To all those who keep the spirit of celebration burning, productively. You tuck it into your coat, unsure if that's meant to be comforting or a warning. Still, when the children disperse, and the official songs fade into the snowy dark, you hum the forbidden tunes in your head. Maybe, late at night, you'll hear a familiar melody drifting from a distant window. Soft, secret, defiantly off-key. In the quiet between verses, you find your own song, unapproved and unmistakably yours. You smile, humming Jingle Bells under your breath, a quiet act of rebellion muffled by scarf and snow. Just as you're warming up to the party, the electricity flickers off. It's not sabotage, just the local power grid doing its annual winter imitation of a hibernating bear. You pass the time with stories and the world's most competitive game of shadow puppets. At first, there's that hopeful hush. Everyone waits, staring up at the light bulb as if the collective willpower of the apartment block might bring it sputtering back to life. It doesn't. A faint cheer echoes from somewhere down the hall. The sound of neighbors resigned to tradition. Someone produces a single candle, rescued from the kitchen drawer, stubby and smelling faintly of pickles. You cluster around, faces drawn close, shadows stretching up the walls like party guests no one invited. This is blackout culture, Soviet style. It happens so often you wonder if it's officially part of the New Year's itinerary. Eat dinner, sing patriotic songs, plunge into darkness, and contemplate the finer points of state infrastructure. The radio goes silent, the refrigerator joins the great hush, and even the radiator seems to sigh. Not again. Your breath is visible in the cold, and you're thankful for all those extra layers your mother insisted you wear. In the candlelight, everyone looks faintly heroic. Like pioneers, but with more cabbage in their diet, you move seamlessly into blackout activities. There's always the classic, telling stories. Grandma starts with her favorite, the tale of the winter. The power went out for an entire week. When the family survived on bread, good cheer, and the promise of electricity any day now. Dad chimes in with a story about how, in his youth, the dark was the best time for sharing secrets and plotting minor rebellions, like sneaking out for contraband ice skating on the river. Your little brother is desperate to contribute, so he invents a story about a talking bear who brings light bulbs to children who finish their homework on time. As the candle flickers, someone suggests a game of shadow puppets. Suddenly, the party becomes a theatre. Hands twist into wolves and doves, and, at one point, what is either a dancing camel or Uncle Yuri's failed attempt at a party secretary. The competition is fierce, judged by the length of applause and the creativity of each animal. Your cousin's two-handed attempt at a socially conscious squirrel is met with polite confusion, but earns extra points for effort. Laughter ricochets off the walls, louder in the dark, unburdened by the usual self-consciousness. For a few minutes, you almost forget about the frozen leftovers and the soggy potatoes. Outside, the world is even quieter. Through the frosted window, you can see other apartments flickering with candlelight, little islands of humanity adrift in the blackout sea. The city, stripped of neon and radio jingles, feels both ancient and new, like something out of your grandmother's stories, or maybe out of time itself. Someone pulls out a deck of cards and proposes a round of bureaucrat's bluff, where the goal is to collect the most useless permits. You deal by candlelight, faces animated by anticipation, and tell stories of the most ridiculous documents ever requested. A neighbor who needed written permission to borrow a shovel, or the time someone was fined for unauthorized snowman construction. Eventually, the candle gutter out, and you all sit in the velvety dark, still smiling. The power, like New Year's miracles, returns when you least expect it. A sudden surge, a chorus of relieved applause, the light bulb stuttering back to life. Everyone blinks in the glare, a little sad to see the shadows go. You settle back into the party, grateful for the light, but with a fondness for the hour you spent as blackout pioneers, telling stories, making shadow animals, and proving that even when the power fails, the spark of mischief and togetherness always finds a way to shine. It's not a holiday until someone raises a contraband glass of homemade vodka. You clink cups, whisper Zazadorovai, and try not to spill. The KGB could be listening, or, more likely, they're at the next table doing the same thing, drinking. In Soviet holiday tradition is an exercise in hope, subterfuge, and improvisation. State law frowns on private brewing, but the entire neighborhood winks at the idea. Everyone knows a friend who knows a cousin who owns a samagon still hidden in the depths of a potato cellar. The most prized gift at any gathering isn't a present wrapped in ribbon, but a nondescript bottle passed quietly under the table, its contents clear, sharp, and potentially flammable. Tonight, the party is in full swing, or as full as it can be, with blackout windows and the radio playing patriotic marches at conversational volume. The food is meager, but the company is rich in conspiracy. Someone makes sure the curtains are drawn and the lights are low. You know better than to talk politics when the vodka comes out, but jokes about the quality of the state-approved swill are always fair game. Your uncle raises his glass and toasts to the future when the best vodka won't taste like fermented shoe polish. The first sip burns with both tradition and necessity. You wince, exhale, and chase it down with a cube of potato, which soaks up the fire and replaces it with a gentle warmth. Around you, everyone relaxes just a little, the way only forbidden spirits can loosen shoulders and tongues. Toasts follow, each delivered with the kind of careful sincerity that might pass for innocence in the right company. Someone toasts to health and happiness in whatever form they can be smuggled in, someone else to absent friends. And the room goes quiet for a second, honoring all those who didn't make it home this year, or who are spending their holidays in distant places with different sets of listeners. Your cousin toasts to the resilience of potatoes, which draws a round of laughter and a few mock-wounded glances at the potato salad. With each round, the jokes get braver. You recount the story of the year. The New Year's toast was interrupted by a neighbor's unexpected visit, resulting in a mad scramble to hide the vodka in a flower pot. Your aunt chimes in about the time she toasted the glorious 5-year plan and nearly choked on her own sarcasm. Even Grandma, usually the model of caution, raises her glass with a sly grin and whispers, "To the ones who keep their spirits up and their secrets better." You watch as the bottle circles the room, accompanied by knowing glances and an unspoken agreement that what happens tonight is strictly off the record. There's a thrill in the ritual, an undercurrent of rebellion with every glass. The KGB, you suspect, is well aware that half the city is toasting by candlelight. But tradition, even the illegal kind, is hard to stamp out. The toasts continue long into the night. As the bottle empties and the laughter grows louder, you sense the invisible bonds that tie the room together. A conspiracy of cheer that neither party bosses nor informants can quite reach. The apartment is warm now, voices tumbling over each other, grievances melting into song, and the vodka almost gone. When it's finally time for the last toast, you raise your glass with everyone else and whisper, "To next year, may it bring more joy, less fear, and, with luck, a little better vodka." Glasses clink, hope shivers in the air. And for a moment, you know that what you're really smuggling is not just spirits, but the stubborn, irrepressible cheer that makes every winter survivable. As you slip off to bed, head spinning with forbidden warmth, you marvel at how a single, secret toast can light up even the darkest Soviet night. Everyone dresses up, but the dress code is a spectrum from optimistically formal to "I hope my socks match." Bonus points if your tie features a tractor or your dress is the color of the motherland. Getting ready for the Soviet holiday gathering is its own unique trial, a fashion show with no clear winners and absolutely no room for error. The day starts with a family wardrobe summit, each person digging through the closet for something that is neither too shabby nor too ostentatious. You're aiming for modestly festive. The elusive middle ground between this is a special occasion, and don't report me for suspicious displays of prosperity. For most, that means pulling out the good shirt, the one with only 2 buttons missing, ideally from the cuff. The iron comes out, hissing with determination and leaving neat lines of steam on collars that haven't seen daylight since May Day. You stand in front of the mirror, tucking and untucking your shirt, trying to remember whether red means celebration or party official's niece. You settle on a tie with a faint wheat pattern and call it patriotic, but understated. Your little brother raids the scarf drawer and emerges wearing 3, none of which match, but all of which contribute to a general air of prepared for the parade or a blizzard. Grandma always goes the extra mile, pinning a faded brooch shaped like a sheaf of wheat to her lapel. She insists it's the height of party fashion, though you suspect it's just the only accessory left from before the revolution. Your cousin, never one to be outdone, has stitched a miniature red star to the pocket of his blazer, a decision he'll later regret when it catches on the samovar and dangles all through dinner. The younger children are a burst of chaotic festivity. Girls wear dresses handed down through at least 3 siblings, some now trimmed with inventive patches in the shape of tractors, rockets, or, one year, a surprisingly accurate portrait of Lenin done in leftover felt. Boys are buttoned into shirts that strain at the seams, collars starchy and high, hair parted with military precision. All of them look slightly terrified, as if dressing well might accidentally summon an official inspection. The apartment itself does its best to get in on the act. The good tablecloth comes out, carefully hiding its stains under a stack of newspapers and the hopeful promise that no one will notice. A paper garland, a little worse for wear, is strung across the living room. The potted plant, pressed into service as a New Year's tree, is draped with red ribbon and one lone ornament, an old button that gleams with an optimistic sort of dignity. You gather for the pre-dinner family photo, everyone assembled in their finest, by local standards anyway. Mom arranges you by height, carefully positioning Grandma's wheat brooch so it's visible but not front and center. The camera flashes, capturing the moment just before someone's sock falls down and your brother's scarf slips over his eyes. After the photo, there's always the great shoe debate. Do you keep them on, freezing but proper, or sneak them off under the table, warm but risky if discovered? The answer, as always, is yes. Someone loses a shoe halfway through the first toast, prompting a giggle from the children and a stern composure from Grandpa. In the end, the holiday attire is less about impressing anyone and more about participating in the communal ritual of hope. Every mismatched sock and clashing scarf is a badge of survival, a reminder that, despite ration lines, hand-me-downs, and the fashion police masquerading as neighbors, you can still dress up and celebrate. So you lift your glass, socks and all, and toast to family, to style, and to the unwavering confidence required to wear a tie with a tractor on it. Because, in this house, fashion is just one more way to prove you're ready for whatever the new year brings. You remember holidays before the revolution, if you're old enough, or if you've ever dared to ask. Stories of carolers, midnight mass, and gingerbread houses circulate quietly, like family recipes with no written proof. In the hush of winter, as the official festivities march by in waves of red banners and approved slogans, the unofficial holiday lingers in the corners. If you listen closely, you can almost hear the faint echo of church bells from a century ago, or the laughter of children chasing each other through snowy courtyards lit by nothing but candles and hope. Sometimes, in the blue hour between dusk and blackout, the old ones gather by the radiator and swap memories the way others trade ration coupons. Quietly, carefully, and always with a lookout posted by the door. The tales tumble out in fragments. We had a tree, someone murmurs, and real candles clipped to the branches. Not safe, but beautiful. You picture it, wax dripping onto polished floors, pine needles perfuming the air, the entire family holding hands and singing a song you've only ever heard in whispers. There was a midnight mass, too. The church packed and glowing with faith and nervous energy. The priests would bless everyone, noble, peasant, and merchant alike, and there would be gingerbread shaped like stars, horses, or sometimes, if the baker was feeling cheeky, a little angel with a broken wing. Gingerbread, you think, is as much myth as memory. Your mother once described a house made entirely of the stuff, iced windows and sugared roofs, candies gleaming like stained glass. It sounded so magical, you spent weeks trying to recreate it with stale bread and a secret stash of honey. It collapsed immediately, of course. But the laughter that followed was the kind that gets you through January. The real recipe, your grandmother insists, was never written down, passed from hand to hand, mouth to ear, changing a little with each retelling. If you remember the taste, she winks, you don't need a recipe. If you're too young to have lived it, you become a collector of stories. You ask sly questions at the dinner table and jot down the answers in a notebook disguised as homework. Uncle Lev remembers standing at the very back of midnight mass, watching his mother weep as the choir sang. Your neighbor Galina claims she once saw a sleigh drawn by real horses, ribbons trailing behind, as children cheered and threw handfuls of snow in celebration. Some memories are less romantic but more real. The bitter cold, the hours spent queuing for a scrap of meat, the sudden, terrifying knock on the door that could mean the end of holiday dreams. Your great-aunt still hides a wooden star in her dresser, a relic from the old days. It's not for decoration, she says, just for remembering. The ghosts of Christmas past are not sad exactly, they're stubborn. They refuse to leave, clinging to kitchen shelves, hiding in the folds of old coats, peeking out from behind the dull eyes of party-approved ornaments. Every so often, they flicker to life. In the taste of a dried apricot, in the crackle of a forbidden tune on the radio, in the sharp, sweet scent of cloves pressed into an apple. And so you keep them alive as best you can. You learn to listen for the stories, to repeat the names of lost dishes and long-gone relatives, to let the old songs rattle around your head on sleepless winter nights. It's a quiet resistance, one that doesn't need parades or speeches or even gingerbread. Just memory, kept safe through one more season, like a candle hidden from the wind. In the end, the ghosts of Christmas past aren't haunting you, they're guiding you, reminding you that while traditions can be outlawed and recipes lost, the warmth of memory is always contraband worth smuggling. The boss is coming to dinner, so everyone rehearses their Happy New Year faces. The meal is double rationed, the vodka flows freely, and for one evening, you pretend the holidays have always been this way. Preparation begins a week in advance, with your mother scrubbing the apartment until it gleams like a showpiece in a housing cooperative's brochure. Windows are polished, rugs beaten, the best, meaning least, stained curtains are hung. The family gathers for a strategy meeting. Everyone gets a role. Dad will deliver the enthusiastic worker monologue. Grandma will keep the conversation safely on party-approved topics. Your job: smile convincingly and do not, under any circumstances, mention Christmas, saints, or that time last year when Uncle Yuri's toast devolved into a passionate defense of unauthorized gingerbread. You practice your smile in the mirror, aiming for a look that says content but not smug, hopeful but not suspicious. The kids are drilled to answer any questions with, "I love the collective farm, and potatoes are my favorite food." Little cousin Sasha is coached to sing the state anthem on command, just in case. On the day of the dinner, a sense of mild panic sweeps the house. The menu has been carefully curated, built for maximum impressiveness without triggering the "where did you get this?" reflex. Potatoes are peeled, beets are boiled, and for the first time all year, there's a suspiciously generous portion of pickled herring. Mom even produces a secret cake, sweetened with sugar rationed out over 6 months and baked before dawn so the smell wouldn't drift to prying noses next door. When the boss finally arrives, punctual, shiny-shoed, and radiating an air of, "I'm here to observe, but also, I may confiscate your rug," the entire family stands to attention. "Happy New Year, comrade." You all chorus faces a spectrum of nervous enthusiasm. The boss's coat is hung with reverence, his hat placed on the highest shelf, an unspoken sign of respect. He's barely inside before Dad offers a toast, raising his glass with the practiced flourish of a man who's been through this before. To the health of our team, our factory, and the glorious future. The dinner is a blur of smiles and strategic conversation. You serve the boss extra helpings of everything, gauging his reactions as if you're reading the secret minutes of a party meeting. Every story is carefully selected. Tales of success at work, jokes about the weather, an anecdote about that time the tractor broke down and everyone pulled together to save the harvest. You nod at all the right moments, laugh when appropriate, and try not to let your gaze linger longingly at the old family photo hidden behind the radio. Vodka is poured liberally, and the more it flows, the more everyone relaxes, almost. The boss tells his own stories, mostly about regulations and quotas, but after the third glass, he lets slip a smile and even a laugh that sounds suspiciously genuine. The conversation takes a warmer turn as he reminisces about his own childhood New Year's. skirting the forbidden words but describing the twinkle of tinsel and the taste of oranges with a wistfulness that isn't in the official guidebook. For a few hours, you all exist in a strange in-between, acting out holiday joy for inspection, yet sharing a real camaraderie built on the unspoken knowledge that everyone here is playing a role. When the cake is served, the boss declares it exemplary, and Mom beams like she's just received a medal from the Central Committee. When the evening draws to a close, the boss stands, compliments the family on their spirit of celebration, and wishes you all the best for the 5-year plan. As his footsteps echo down the stairwell, the tension dissolves into relieved laughter. You let your Happy New Year face slip into something more real. A quiet, conspiratorial smile shared by everyone at the table. For one night, you've pulled off the impossible, convincing the world, or at least one highly placed official, that these are the holidays you were always meant to have, and if you're lucky, by next year, you'll have the story down to an art. When the clock strikes midnight, everyone cheers, not just for the new year, but for the quiet thrill of rebellion. Kids get presents, parents get hope, and for one night, the spirit of Christmas tiptoes back in through the frost-covered window. Midnight in the Soviet Union is always a big deal. The radio announcer, now slightly tipsy from hours of state-mandated celebration, counts down the last seconds of the old year. Voice booming through apartment blocks and half-frozen courtyards. You clutch your glass of compote, or, let's be honest, a smuggled shot of something stronger, and count along, heart pounding not only with hope, but with the giddy anticipation that tonight, just for a little while, anything is possible. There's a flurry of hugs and toasts, laughter echoing through thin walls. Neighbors bang on pipes, fireworks pop over the river, and the trams finally take a break from their daily symphony of squeaks and groans. In the chaos, nobody notices if a suspiciously pine-scented branch has found its way into the New Year's tree, or if a few extra candles have been lit, twinkling with old-world defiance. It's a moment when people slip into tradition, ducking under the radar of official calendars and quota checklists. For children, the first minutes of January are pure magic. They tumble around the living room in their pajamas, wide-eyed as presents appear, modest by any standard, but precious nonetheless. A small wooden toy, a hand-knitted mitten, maybe a carefully hoarded tangerine, or, if the gods of black market trade have smiled, a bar of chocolate with more foil than cocoa. The gifts are unwrapped with the kind of joy that can only come from months of expectation and the faint sense that this is all, somehow, a little bit illicit. Parents, meanwhile, look on with something dangerously close to hope. Maybe this year the shortages will be a little less severe. Maybe there will be more warmth, less waiting. A future that feels less like a line at the post office and more like the open road. For tonight, they let themselves believe in the possibility of small miracles. A sudden delivery of oranges at the shop, a lost friend returning, a winter that's just a little kinder. The adults know the rules, of course. They keep the music just quiet enough, the carols disguised as folk songs, the stories of Christmas past told in a low voice after the children have gone to bed. But when the clock strikes 12, everyone loosens. Just a bit. Grandpa tells the story of his childhood, when New Year's was just an excuse to celebrate Christmas anyway. Your mother hands out slices of beet cake and, for once, doesn't say a word about sugar quotas. Tonight, the whole country feels different. The cold is the same, but the air is lighter. Downstairs, the building super, who spent the last week warning everyone about unauthorized festivity, is now toasting with the neighbors, face red with both vodka and laughter. For once, nobody is watching the clock. In the early hours, as the city settles back into a hush, you sneak another look at the tree, its branches drooping under a patchwork of old and new. There, tucked in among the red stars and paper tractors, is a single, battered ornament in the shape of an angel. You don't say anything, but your mother gives you a knowing smile. You head to bed, heart full, the world outside still humming with secret songs and the glow of fireworks. For a few precious hours, it's Christmas, sort of. And in the quiet, you can almost believe that miracles don't care about calendars or party lines. They show up when people need them, tiptoeing in on the coldest nights, leaving behind hope, laughter, and just a little bit of forbidden joy. After all the excitement, you wake up to the realities of Soviet January. Snow, work, and the faint aftertaste of state-sanctioned merriment. You nurse your headache with sour cabbage soup and count the days until spring. January 1st, in theory, is a day of rest. In practice, it's a day of national recovery, a mass hangover, physical, emotional, and ideological. The celebration is over, the forbidden cheer has evaporated, and all that's left is a kitchen full of empty glasses, one limp balloon, and a tangerine peel curled on the radiator like a relic from a happier civilization. You drag yourself out of bed, each bone creaking in protest, and step into the kitchen, where the holiday's aftermath clings to every surface. Crumbs of beet cake, sticky compote rings, and the ghost of last night's potato salad stare back at you, demanding answers. The air is thick with the scent of stale vodka, burnt bread, and the unspoken agreement that today will not be productive. Your first order of business, rehydration. You fill a chipped mug with hot water and squeeze in a slice of lemon, if there's any left, or, failing that, a few drops of vinegar. Someone passes you a bowl of sour cabbage soup, the traditional cure-all for everything from headaches to heartbreak. It's as comforting as it is pungent, and as you sip, you can feel a little of your will to live seep back in. Outside, winter presses against the window, a white wall of endless snow and the dull grind of daily life. You wrap yourself in the thickest sweater you own and consider hibernation. But the factory whistle, or maybe just your mother's stern voice, calls you back to reality. There are walkways to shovel, work to return to, and a dozen neighbors comparing notes on who had the best parade punch or the most convincing official joy face. You try to piece together the night before. There was singing, sort of. There were toasts, definitely. There may have been a moment when you and your uncle debated the merits of beet vodka versus potato, a discussion that grew heated until someone distracted everyone with a round of bureaucrats' bluff. Your head throbs with memories, and your heart aches just a little for the fleeting magic you managed to smuggle into the evening. The post-holiday routine is about survival, plain and simple. You invent coping mechanisms with the same ingenuity that got you through the feast. Nap strategically between work shifts, treat yourself to the last square of chocolate if you're feeling brave, and ignore the neighbor who insists on recounting the entire holiday parade in excruciating detail. Some people swear by brisk walks in the snow, others by writing poetry about turnips, but most simply go through the motions and wait for the thaw. If you're lucky, you'll find a forgotten gift. Maybe a bar of soap, maybe an extra pair of socks, maybe a little note tucked away that says, "Next year will be better." It's enough to keep you moving, to remind you that even the worst hangovers fade. And that winter, like the holidays, can't last forever. In the evenings, as darkness falls absurdly early, you and your family gather around what's left of the tree, nursing mugs of weak tea and telling stories about the good old days. Some real, most invented on the spot for the benefit of the children. You sigh, you laugh. You do your best not to count the weeks until spring. It's not glamorous, but it's enough. You survive January not with grand resolutions, but with small comforts, and the knowledge that you and your loved ones made it through another holiday season together. And when you finally crawl back into bed, you whisper a quiet promise to yourself. Next year, you'll pace yourself with the parade punch. And maybe, just maybe, you'll find a little more joy in the ordinary, cabbage-scented days that follow. You hang garlands and streamers, all in shades of red, gold, and whatever else is available. The apartment looks festive, if a little too patriotic. You briefly consider a blue ornament but decide not to risk it. Decorating for the Soviet New Year is less a question of taste and more a lesson in political science. The rules are clear. Red for the revolution, gold for the glorious future, white for the snow, and anything else, only if you can defend it as the color of progress. Gone are the days of rainbow tinsel, delicate glass baubles, and sentimental heirlooms. Every ornament now comes with a history lesson and a built-in warning. Check twice for subversive undertones. You and your family dig through a battered cardboard box labeled holiday supplies. Inspected. Pulling out paper chains dyed in uneven hues. Their reds closer to pink, their gold a faint memory of last year's wrapping paper. There are shiny foil stars, each stamped with a hammer and sickle, and a stack of party-approved banners. Forward with Lenin. New year, new plan, glory to potato harvests. Someone finds a streamer that might once have been green, but after 3 winters and 2 bleachings, it's faded into diplomatic ambiguity. The centerpiece, as always, is the New Year's tree. You wrap it in red ribbons, drape it in tinsel so metallic it doubles as radio interference, and crown it with a 5-pointed star that's slightly off-kilter but perfectly aligned with the official line. Your little brother tries to sneak a snowflake ornament in the shape of a dove onto the branches. Grandma glances over, shakes her head, and replaces it with a sturdy cardboard tractor instead. On the coffee table sits a bowl of painted walnuts, red and gold, of course, ready for display, not consumption. They're a relic from a year when real walnuts were nowhere to be found. But everyone agreed that the color scheme was more important than protein. As you arrange them, you feel a strange surge of pride. You may not have the most beautiful decorations, but no one can accuse your apartment of lacking revolutionary zeal. You pause and gaze at the official garland, a meter-long masterpiece spelling out unity, labor, peace. The U is missing, replaced by a scribbled-in letter on a scrap of newspaper, but you're sure no one will notice. If anyone asks, it's a comment on the fluidity of modern design. Outside, the city is festooned with similar displays. Giant red banners billow across balconies. Icicles hang from windows like a chorus of glassy applause, and every public tree is topped with a star large enough to be seen from the International Space Station. Assuming the cosmonauts are also feeling festive, you briefly imagine a world where blue ornaments are allowed, where silver bells chime in shop windows, where the color wheel doesn't come with an appendix. Yet, as the evening falls and the apartment glows with 1,000 shades of red and gold, you realize something unexpected. All the limitations and regulations have turned decorating into a kind of underground art form. Your mother manages to weave a little green thread into a garland, calling it the color of new growth. A neighbor passes you a paper crane, folded from blue scrap, and winks as you tuck it deep into the tree. Even the cat gets in on the act, batting a red ribbon until it curls into something almost festive. By the time midnight arrives, the apartment is a tapestry of hidden hope, accidental beauty, and quiet defiance. Proof that even when decorations come with an agenda, a little wonder can sneak in around the edges. You raise a glass to the red, the gold, and the whatever else you can get away with, and you wish the new year will be just as bright and maybe, someday, a little more colorful. The pamphlet says holidays are for building the socialist future. You build a snow fort, which technically counts. The neighbors approve, the children cheer, and everyone avoids mentioning the old days. Like everything else, Holidays under Stalin come with instructions. This year's official pamphlet, printed on grey paper that crumbles at the edges, sits on the coffee table in pride of place. Its title: How to Celebrate Correctly. Collective Cheer for a Glorious Tomorrow. The first page features dead Moroz, Grandfather Frost in an impeccably red coat, flanked by happy, industrious children, each holding a model tractor or a tiny flag. There's no mention of tinsel, angels, or gingerbread. Instead, the pamphlet is filled with charts, inspirational slogans, and, for good measure, a list of unapproved activities so long you have to flip to page 12 just to check if singing is still allowed. You read the recommendations out loud. This season, foster enthusiasm for mechanization. Share stories of productive winter labor. Your mother nods approvingly and hands you a mop, suggesting you channel the spirit of collective effort by scrubbing the kitchen floor. It's what Comrade Stalin would want, she says, not quite joking, especially before the party boss comes over. In place of fairy tales, you gather the children and tell them about the legendary snowplow of Novosibirsk, a mighty machine that cleared the roads faster than any horse-drawn sleigh. For once, no one asks about reindeer. Instead, little Sasha wants to know how many tons of snow a heroic worker can shovel before bedtime. You make up a number, 3,000, because it sounds impressively productive and is safely uncheckable. The snow fort out in the courtyard grows with each passing hour, every child piling icy bricks, quoting lines from the pamphlet, a snowball in every hand, a smile in every heart, and daring each other to build their towers higher than the neighbors. The Minsk method of snow fort construction is whispered about like a state secret. Compact the base, reinforce with icy water, and salute the finished fortress for the glory of collective engineering. The adults supervise, dispensing advice on the correct angle of ramparts and, when no one is watching, sneaking in a snowball fight of their own. Later, the whole building gathers in the entryway for the official recitation of achievements. Someone from apartment 6 reads out the year's quotas: potatoes planted, fences mended, shoes patched. There's polite applause, a toast with parade punch, and a chorus of "May the New Year bring more tractors." You exchange looks with your neighbor, both of you remembering a time when holidays meant gifts and songs, not production statistics and collective hope. Yet, even within the boundaries of Stalin's handbook, mischief and tradition managed to slip through. The snow fort is decorated with a suspiciously familiar silver star, repurposed from a family heirloom. The punch is spiked, just a little, by an aunt who claims her recipe is for morale. When the children sing, the melody wanders close to an old forbidden carol before veering back into song of the happy grain harvester. You hum along, lips sealed, wondering if anyone else notices. By the end of the evening, you realize you've followed the handbook to the letter, at least on paper. You've built, you've recited, you've cheered for the future, but you've also laughed, shared secrets, and found joy in the ordinary. The snow fort stands as proof, a monument to both the spirit of the times and the stubborn, hopeful streak that can't be written out of any pamphlet, no matter how thick. As you go to bed, you tuck the pamphlet back into its drawer, smile at the memory of the day's productive activities, and wonder what lessons next year's handbook will bring. Or, better yet, what traditions you'll smuggle through the margins. After everyone's asleep, you sneak a leftover ornament out of hiding and hang it on a plant. It's not much, but for a moment, it feels like Christmas after all, a tiny act of holiday hope in the middle of a Soviet winter. The apartment is finally silent. The radiators hiss, the snow thickens against the window, and you move through the dark with the practiced stealth of a resistance fighter. Except your cause is joy, and your contraband is a battered glass bauble, chipped but still faintly sparkling. You've kept it hidden all season, wrapped in a handkerchief inside your sock drawer, wedged between ration cards and the last precious wedge of chocolate. The rest of the family sleeps the heavy sleep of holiday exhaustion, bellies full of potatoes, minds numbed by quota recitations, dreams fluttering with images of tractors and red stars. For days you've done your part, singing the right songs, toasting the right slogans, building snow forts that could double as monuments to socialist progress. But tonight, with the world quiet, you finally let yourself remember. You pad over to the corner where a sturdy houseplant, an unkillable pothos, veteran of 7 winters and 5 apartment moves, sits by the window. It's been drafted into service as your clandestine tree, its leaves sturdy enough to hold one secret memory. You take out the ornament, hands trembling just a little with the thrill of rebellion, and carefully hook it onto the strongest stem. It swings gently, catching the faint orange glow from the street lamp outside, glinting in a way that feels like magic. For a few stolen minutes, you sit cross-legged on the floor, admiring your handiwork. The room, so recently brimming with sanctioned festivity, feels transformed. Here, beneath the plant, time folds in on itself. You remember Christmases past, real or imagined, where trees sparkled and families gathered openly, not in coded whispers. You think about the stories you've heard, the ones no one's supposed to tell, midnight masses, candlelight processions, feasts that didn't end with potato peels and government pamphlets. It's a silly thing, this ornament. On another night, in another place, you'd have dozens like it, different colors, different shapes, filling a tree with the kind of abundance you can only dream of now. But here, now, this single bauble is enough. It's a secret sign that you haven't given up on wonder, that hope can slip past censors and quotas, that somewhere in the middle of prescribed cheer, the old holiday has found a way back in. You hear a creak in the hallway and freeze. The building is full of noises, pipes expanding, wind squeezing through ill-fitting windows, neighbors shuffling to the bathroom. You wait, heart thudding, but no one comes. The moment passes. You exhale slowly, letting the quiet fill you up. A little braver, you pull a match from your pocket and light a candle stub, just for a second, just for yourself. The warm, flickering glow paints golden shadows across the walls, turning the plain apartment into a cathedral of dreams. For a heartbeat, you hum the first bars of a forbidden carol, voice barely more than breath. It's not enough to wake anyone, but it's enough to remember. You close your eyes and make a wish, an old habit that's survived every regime. Maybe for more tangerines next year, maybe for fewer quotas, or a real tree, or simply the chance to gather again without fear. You know the world won't change overnight, but for a moment, with the ornament swaying gently and the candle burning low, it feels possible. When the flame gutters out, you tuck the match away, give the plant a gentle pat, and slip back into bed, carrying your secret with you. The city outside sleeps on, unaware of the tiny act of hope blooming in the dark. And in the morning, as sunlight finds the glass and throws rainbows on the peeling wallpaper, you smile. No one notices. But you know, Christmas came back, just for a moment, because you let it. You wake up to find an official notice taped to your door. Spontaneous joy is prohibited unless approved in triplicate. Turns out, you need permission to be merry. So you practice your regulated cheerfulness in the mirror, just in case someone from the local party committee drops by to see if you're smiling correctly. In the Soviet holiday season, joy is a state-sponsored enterprise. Somewhere, deep in a government office, there's a dusty manual outlining exactly how many decibels of laughter are allowed per square meter and how often it's acceptable to raise a glass in celebration. The rules are precise, if not exactly clear. Unapproved merriment is, after all, a gateway to chaos. You don't want the neighbors thinking you've gone full-blown counter-revolutionary just because you hummed an unapproved tune. As you get dressed, you mentally run through the official guidelines. Smile, but not too broadly. Laugh, but only at jokes approved by the committee. Look festive, but never giddy. You rehearse in the bathroom mirror, raising your eyebrows and arranging your lips into an expression that says, "I am enjoying myself," but in a controlled, ideologically sound way. You even practice a few neutral chuckles, just in case there's a surprise inspection. After all, the party boss down the hall once reported a neighbor for unlicensed exuberance, and you don't want to end up the star of next month's What Not to Do at State Holidays seminar. Your mother takes the notice off the door and tucks it into the folder of official paperwork, right next to the permit for owning a samovar and the certificate declaring your father's loyalty to the collective beet harvest. "It's all about optics," she says, only half joking. "If you're going to be happy in triplicate." The first test of the day comes early. As the local party representative makes his rounds, he peers through the peephole, clipboard in hand, looking for telltale signs of unauthorized fun. You open the door and offer a seasonally appropriate greeting. "Happy productive winter, comrade." He glances over your shoulder to see if you're wearing your festive red scarf and if the radio is tuned to the official channel. You both nod solemnly at the poster on the wall, "Collective joy is the best joy," and he makes a note on his clipboard before moving on to the next apartment. Throughout the day, you catch yourself monitoring your own behavior. You tone down your laughter, add a little extra seriousness to your jokes, and avoid any discussions about the good old days, when holidays were less regulated and more, well, fun. You even consider filling out a form to request permission to feel nostalgic, but decide it's not worth the paperwork. At lunch, you and your family share a muted toast, clinking glasses with the careful optimism of people who know every sound carries through the thin apartment walls. "To happiness," Dad says, approved in advance. The children giggle, quietly, of course, and you remind them, enthusiasm is best in moderation. Later, you hear a burst of laughter from the stairwell. You freeze, wondering if it's genuine or just someone testing the boundaries. When it happens again, you peek through the peephole and see the neighbor's children playing shadow puppets, faces alight with regulated delight. You almost join them, but think better of it. One of them might be on the party youth track, and you've worked too hard on your compliant cheerfulness to risk a spontaneous game. As the day ends, you relax a little. The party line on holiday spirit may be clear, but the reality is more complicated. Behind every officially sanctioned smile is a secret wink, a quietly shared joke, a moment of real joy that slips past the regulations. You may not be free to celebrate as you wish, but you've mastered the art of merriment with plausible deniability. And sometimes, that's the best celebration of all, approved or not. Children all over the country have been told to write New Year's letters to Stalin. You help your child pen something appropriately grateful, resisting the urge to add a PS. "Please send more tangerines." The whole family holds its breath as the letter goes into the mailbox, hoping the worst that comes back is a form letter and not a party official. It's an annual ritual, equal parts hopeful and nerve-wracking, performed at kitchen tables from Leningrad to Vladivostok. The official line is clear. Writing to Comrade Stalin is a privilege, a way to express one's patriotic gratitude, and, with luck, receive a signed reply, a token gift, or perhaps a small bump up the tangerine food chain. The unspoken line, of course, is even clearer. Get it wrong. And your next gift could be a visit from someone with a notebook and a very cold stare. Your child sits in her chair, pencil poised above the carefully ruled page. Together, you craft a masterpiece of cautious optimism. Dear Comrade Stalin, thank you for the beautiful new tractors and for our glorious collective farm. We promise to work even harder this year. You suggest she adds something about loving school and sharing her rationed bread, just to cover all ideological bases. She looks up, eyes wide. Can I ask for a doll? You consider the risk. Dolls are acceptable, provided they are the plain, unblinking Soviet kind, not anything decadent or Western-looking. Only if you thank him for your education first, you reply. She does, in a script that leans uncertainly but gets the message across. The real art, of course, is knowing what not to write. You leave out any mention of religion, of lost relatives, of old family photos with suspiciously well-dressed ancestors. You definitely do not mention missing Christmas, or how much you wish the New Year's tree had a few angels, or how sometimes you dream of a world where letters go to Santa instead. As the letter is sealed in its envelope, everyone in the house suddenly finds something important to do. Dad checks the mailbox twice, as if a second look might improve the odds. Grandma wipes her hands on her apron and mutters a quick prayer, though she insists it's just a habit left over from before. The neighbor's boy, watching from the landing, asks if he can write, "Please send more sausage." His mother, horrified, shakes her head so hard her kerchief slips sideways. You try to reassure your child, it's just for fun. Lots of children write to Comrade Stalin. She nods, unconvinced. You both know that in the Soviet Union, just for fun always comes with a layer of plausible deniability. Still, she drops the letter in the slot, and you both watch as it vanishes into the abyss. Days pass. The radio blares the official story of grateful children and benevolent leaders. But you know most letters end up in a pile somewhere, read by a secretary with a rubber stamp and a stack of pre-printed replies. Still, there are rumors, stories of families who received an unexpected parcel, oranges, books, maybe a scarf, and, legend has it, a personal note from the father of the people himself. There are other rumors too, families who were asked to explain their letters, or whose children got extra lessons on the importance of collective gratitude. When the mailbox finally yields an envelope, your heart skips. Inside is a card with a snowy scene and a smiling dead Moroz, and a polite, impersonal message. The party thanks you for your loyalty. Continue to labor for the glory of the motherland. No toys, no tangerines. But, most important, no party officials at the door. You hang the card on the wall, next to last year's, and let out a sigh of relief. In a land where even your wishes are watched, surviving the season is sometimes the best present of all. Tonight, the Youth League is putting on a pageant in the community hall. A rousing reenactment of tractor production statistics set to music. You clap along as children dressed as steel girders and heroic workers parade past. The applause is polite, the cookies are stale, and the excitement is strictly within party guidelines. It's the kind of event everyone in the neighborhood is encouraged to attend. The invitation is printed in bold, cheerfully authoritarian font and hand-delivered by the local Komsomol organizer, who beams as she reminds you, no one wants to miss the cultural highlight of the season. You smile and nod, already planning which scarf to wear so you can pull it over your ears if the songs go long. The hall is decorated with banners proclaiming "Forward to Greater Harvests" and "Youth, the Future of Industry." There are paper snowflakes stuck to every window and a papier-mâché model of a combine harvester sitting in pride of place on the stage. You find your seat, metal folding chairs arranged in neat, chilly rows, and exchange conspiratorial glances with your neighbor, who's already calculating how soon it's polite to sneak out for fresh air. The lights dim, a hush falls. The first act is the dance of the 5-year plan. performed by a line of children in red scarves and grey felt boots. They move in synchrony, arms swinging like conveyor belts, faces set in the determined expressions of small people who've spent a month rehearsing and a lifetime learning how to clap on cue. The music is triumphant, a stirring march with an occasional jingle from a borrowed triangle. For a moment, you're almost swept up in it. Next comes the dramatic reading of Tractor Triumph, a skit in which little Collier plays the role of a heroic mechanic saving the village harvest. He wears a cardboard wrench and delivers his lines with the seriousness of someone auditioning for the role of future party boss. The audience claps, the adults smiling indulgently, the children craning to see who gets to be the next steel girder. Spoiler, it's always the tallest kid in the class. There's a musical interlude, a medley of state-approved songs about wheat, unity, and the glorious iron backbone of the motherland. You hum along, careful to stay on the right verses. In the row ahead, your aunt dabs her eyes, whispering, "They're so cute, even when they're singing about harvest quotas." The show's highlight is the heroic workers' parade. Children march across the stage in costumes meticulously constructed from old newspapers and kitchen foil. There are tractors, harvesters, even a proud little collective farm built out of cardboard and glue. You clap along as Comrade Potato is crowned with a paper sash reading Starch of the Year. The audience is divided between genuine pride and gentle amusement. Everyone knows the real goal is to show enough enthusiasm to satisfy the event's organizer, who circles the hall with a clipboard and the keen eye of someone who once reported a lackluster applause as counter-revolutionary behavior. At intermission, cookies and tea are served, both cold. You nibble politely, using the break to trade jokes about last year's pageant, the infamous wheat mishap of 47, and to marvel at the kids' ability to turn boredom into high art. Someone remarks that at least this year's performance didn't involve actual machinery, just paper cuts and stage fright. The second half passes in a blur of recited slogans, choreographed optimism, and the grand finale, a group bow to thunderous, regulation, appropriate applause. The organizer beams, already plotting next year's extravaganza. Rumor has it, a musical tribute to beet storage. You gather your things, shake out your legs, and trudge home through the snow, humming the refrain of Forward, comrades to greater output. It's not exactly Christmas, but in its own way. The pageant is a tradition, a reminder that even under the strictest rules, people still find ways to come together, perform, and, if only in small ways, shine. You set out to prepare the ultimate Soviet holiday salad, only to discover that mayonnaise is more elusive than holiday cheer. The local shop is empty, except for one lonely jar behind the counter, guarded by a babushka who remembers the rationing years and trusts no one. You end up trading a pair of wool socks for a spoonful, and dinner is saved. This is holiday cooking in the USSR, part scavenger hunt, part international diplomacy, and part stand-up routine. Except the punchlines are edible, if you're lucky. Preparing a simple salad becomes a campaign. You draft a shopping list, check your ration cards, and say a quick prayer to the household spirits, if you're feeling old-fashioned. The real secret ingredient isn't pickles or peas or even potatoes. It's resourcefulness. Plus a well-timed favor owed by someone on the third floor. Your plan is simple. Olive salad, the cornerstone of any respectable New Year's feast. Potatoes? Check. Boiled eggs? Miraculously, yes. Pickles? Sliced thin to make them stretch. Peas? You find a can at the back of the pantry, expiration date uncertain. But in this apartment, time is a flexible concept. The only thing missing is the mayonnaise. that creamy symbol of culinary victory. You make the rounds at the local shops, shuffling through snowdrifts with the determination of an explorer. The shelves, naturally, are bare. Where there might once have been rows of glistening jars, now there are only dust bunnies, and a sign that reads, "More mayonnaise." Eventually, behind the counter sits the babushka, knitting at a pace that says she's seen it all and expects to see nothing new. Her eyes narrow as you approach. You try charm. "Any mayonnaise, by chance?" She laughs, a sound as dry as yesterday's bread, and gestures at the lone jar behind her, a prize guarded more fiercely than the crown jewels. Rumor has it she once traded a jar for a bag of imported coffee. But that was during the great shortage of '79, and she's only gotten more discerning since. You check your pockets, a few rubles, worthless here, an extra bar of soap, and your last good pair of wool socks. It's not much of a negotiation. You surrender the socks with the solemnity of a state functionary signing an important treaty. She inspects them, nods, and slowly hands you a single, heaping spoonful of mayonnaise. It glistens on a scrap of wax paper like treasure from another world. You clutch it to your chest and scurry home, triumphant. Back in the kitchen, you add the precious dollop to the bowl, stirring as if mixing alchemical gold. The salad comes together, creamy and improbably rich. Every bite, a testament to tenacity and the unwritten rules of barter. When you present it at dinner, the family applauds. Even your cousin, who usually complains about the lack of sausage, beams as he eats. Someone proposes a toast to miracles, culinary or otherwise. The salad is gone in minutes, scraped clean, the bowl licked so enthusiastically you suspect the cat joined in. Afterward, the conversation turns to stories of legendary trades. The time Uncle Misha swapped 3 tins of fish for a pair of shoes, or when someone managed to buy an entire chicken for a handful of imported chewing gum. The adults laugh, the children listen in awe, and the babushka's legend grows with every telling. You pack away the empty dish and make a mental note. Next year, double your sock ration, or learn how to make mayonnaise from scratch, using whatever the Ministry of Surprises decides is suitable for consumption. For now, you savor your victory. In a land where shortages are as common as snowflakes, sometimes a spoonful of mayonnaise is all it takes to make the holiday truly festive. When January finally rolls past, it's time to pack up the New Year's tree, carefully wrapping each propaganda ornament in last week's newspaper. There's a lingering smell of tangerine peels and cabbage. You sweep up the last of the pine needles, hiding any angels or stars for next year, just in case the winds of policy change. With the decorations gone, the apartment feels a little emptier, and yet, somehow, the hope for real Christmas lingers under the surface, waiting for spring. Dismantling the holiday is a ritual of its own. Equal parts practicality and quiet resistance. You start with the obvious things: the red garlands, the cardboard tractors, the paper stars stamped with slogans about unity and labor. Each one is tucked away, layered between pages of state-approved newsprint, glorious output in Minsk, because, in this house, even the old headlines get a second chance at usefulness. You move methodically, working from the top of the tree down. The 5-pointed star, slightly battered, goes into its own box. The ornaments shaped like wheat sheaves and miniature hydroelectric dams are handled with care. After all, you might need them again if the next 5-year plan calls for an extra show of enthusiasm. As you wrap each piece, you find yourself whispering a silent goodbye to the months of anticipation, the evenings spent crafting decorations from scraps and hope, the brief, shining moment when even a tree dressed in propaganda could feel magical. There are forbidden things too: a faded angel, a glass bell, a star cut from silver foil. These you hide deep in the box, beneath layers of duller ornaments, nestled with a secret wish that maybe, next year, the rules will be different. Every family has their hiding places. Behind the books, in the back of the wardrobe, under the loose floorboard in the hallway. You check them all, making sure no trace of subversion is left for prying eyes. The tangerine peels, curled and dry, are swept into the trash. But not before you breathe in their sharp, sweet scent one last time. It's the aroma of holidays past, of gifts shared and rationed, of laughter snatched in moments when no one was watching. Cabbage lingers too, stubborn and earthy. A reminder that joy here is built on whatever is available and whatever you can manage to hold on to. With the tree bare and the room suddenly spacious, you notice the winter light falling differently on the wallpaper. It's a little paler, a little colder, but you tell yourself that it means spring is coming. Your little brother sighs, looking forlornly at the empty corner. "How long until the next New Year's tree?" he asks. You ruffle his hair and promise, soon enough. The rest of the apartment returns to its everyday routine. Coats are hung, the table is cleared, ration cards counted. Life picks up the slow, steady rhythm of survival. Queuing for bread, shoveling snow, trading stories about whose holiday parade had the most convincing heroic worker costume. The radio goes back to broadcasting lectures and marching tunes, and the special holiday frequency is replaced by the usual static. And yet, something lingers. Maybe it's the memory of a clandestine ornament, or the feel of pine needles still stuck in your socks, or the taste of the last tangerine wedge hidden in the bread box. Maybe it's the faint hope that the next year will bring a little more freedom, a little more warmth, a little more celebration without caution. You tuck away the boxes, close the cupboard, and stand for a moment in the quiet. The apartment might look emptier, but you know better. The holiday isn't gone, just waiting, pressed between the pages of last week's news, curled under the floorboards, living in the secret places that rules can't reach. Spring will come, and with it, maybe a reason to celebrate out in the open. For now, you hold on to that hope. Because in this house, as in so many others, the aftermath of the holiday is just the beginning of another year of dreaming. So, as you drift off tonight beneath your soft, regulation-free blanket, take a moment to marvel at the absurd resilience of the human holiday spirit. Through decades of snow, suspicion, and state-sponsored party hats, people found ways to laugh, hope, and celebrate, even if they had to do it in secret or with a tree disguised as an agricultural achievement. Remember, for every year that Stalin tried to file Christmas under historical errors, millions of families snuck in a bit of wonder between ration cards and paperwork. They whispered carols, swapped oranges under the table, and hung tinsel where the censors couldn't see. Even as the banners read "Happy New Year, Comrade," and every angel was swapped for a red star, the real miracle was that joy kept showing up anyway. In the end, even the biggest bureaucracy can't quite schedule the human need for a little hope and togetherness. So tonight, as you tuck yourself into a bed that doesn't double as a potato storage unit, maybe spare a grateful thought for those who managed to find comfort and cheer despite the odds. For the babushkas who hid ornaments in flower bins, for the parents who told magical stories by candlelight, and for the kids who believed that maybe, just maybe, Grandfather Frost had a little Santa in him after all. Because if history teaches us anything, it's that people are stubborn, secretly hilarious, and determined to make a holiday out of whatever scraps they have. Be it tangerine peels, rationed vodka, or the hope that next year things will be just a little brighter. Rest easy. The tree may come down, but the spirit stays, quietly waiting for its next chance to shine. Good night, and may your dreams be free of paperwork and full of wonder.